Hello and welcome to Race 7 of 9 of the HARC Canada campaign. We're at Autodrome Granby in Quebec for a 150-lap race at this half-mile dirt track. It's the last dirt track race of the year and the last race outside of Ontario for the year, as Ike Durbin, the 86, the Indiana native in the Toyota Supra, is going to be the one starting on pole. He captured his only win so far in his career at a short track at the Indianapolis Raceway Park back in 2017. But trouble already for the number 86 as he's going to follow the pace car in. He's reporting to his team that he's got a tire going down, and that's a brutal start to the race. He's going to end up a few laps down changing that tire, as they are not going to wait for him to get this green flag underway, as the 777 Guinness machine of Diego Yepes, who's qualified in third, is going to bring the field to the start to get this race underway. Tony Tavaleris in the Skip Barber Racing Machine with a surprising second place qualifying effort, but he's going to get shuffled back further on that outside line as Ali Nelson goes to the front with Damir Bejyanov in the 73 following her through into second position. Damir Bejyanov is currently sitting second in points, and he needs to be doing all that he can to get by Bryan Hart, who's been incredibly consistent this year and who has a couple of top two finishes already. Small Nozomi, another points contender, into the mix now as the 99 goes to the front. Oh, Damir Bejyanov already up into the wall, and Nick Pericles joins the party. He won one of the 2017 races at this track, and he's up into second place. The Cream Boys rises to the top, it seems, as Nick Pericles would snap the lead away just a couple of laps later, with Sylvain Lesauvage now in second. Montreal, Quebec native, did pretty well in his home race a few races ago, and he's going to go back to the front in that Dodge Challenger. But Fred Flintstone is there too in the F1 machine, as he is yabbity-dabbity doing his way to the front of the field. Patrick Smith and Tony Tavaleris are racing three wide for that position. Tony Tavaleris with some surprisingly impressive racecraft, but I guess those Skip Barber Racing School lessons are paying off. On board Sylvain Lesauvage now, as you can see with reckless abandon how they're driving these cars around this track. It's very fast, as Sylvain nearly got into the back of Casey Lester there. Now to the rear of Sylvain Lesauvage as Bryan Hart hawks it inside the number 13 into turns 1 and 2, and somehow makes it stick as the top two drivers in the championship battle for position inside the top 5. Tony Tavaleris has gone to the front in the DMC DeLorean. The number 69 machine does not have many good finishes to his name. In his opening season in HARC, he did not finish better than 18th in his first 21 races, but managed to snap a top 5 in the final race of the year, but still managed to get out of last place in points. But since then, he hasn't done a whole lot of note that has been good, but a nice start to the day for him. Casey Lester now goes to the lead in front of the number 99, with JF Finguy entering the mix in that white and blue Ford. Oh, that's Small Nozomi in the wall in the number 99. It's going to be a lot of cars with paint scraped off on the right-hand sides as Patrick Smith dives it into the corner there. A close call. I'm surprised he was able to save that car. Car looks mighty loose. Now looking at Patrick Smith again, as he's not able to save it this time. Patrick Smith having trouble through turns 1 and 2. Got into that corner with too much speed and was not able to carry the grip, and goes for a wild roll in turns 1 and 2. Tony Tavaleris gets a piece. JF Finguy got hit the 04 before getting hit by the Jacob Young as well, but Jacob Young is upside down on the back straightaway. I'll have to take another look at this. Jacob Young, yeah, he bounces off the side of the number 92. It gets into the side of Yepes as they scramble away from the flipping 04, and after spinning around, the 15 of Benoit Lothaire-Irvine would tip the 72 up and over. It's Jacob Young's, it's just his second start on his return to HARC. He comes with renewed sponsorship from Canadian Tire, but that car is junk for the day, as they'll need to clean up some oil on the backstretch. They were able to do so, and we're back underway as JF Finguy leads the field back to the green. Casey Lester not waiting for very long, though, as he's going to take a look on the inside. Nick Pericles still in the top 3. Knows how to get it done here, as Fred Flintstone and Sylvain Lesauvage now are back inside the top 3, and we're 3 wide for the lead. Lester leading it up top. Fred Flintstone slides up high. Lester with pretty much nowhere to go except into the wall to avoid a crash. That was some, well, heads-up driving. Maybe one could argue maybe too defensive, and they should have just spun around the F1. But for the sake of green flag racing, we're happy to see it. As JF Finguy now back to the front, as we've got to be leaning towards around 10 drivers leading this race so far. Tristan Wilhoit now takes the lead. I thought that was Allie Nelson for a second because we saw her up at the front. She's still in the top 10, but both of the Discover Alaska cars having a great start to the day, as is Bryan Hart. No surprise there, championship leader. Still relatively unsponsored in that 35 somehow, but Bryan Hart takes over the race lead and is looking to have yet another great performance. Tylor Thaber in the number 89. Now up the inside of the 35 with Small Nozomi to his own inside, and Small Nozomi's going to deny Tylor Thaber the lap lead. Tylor Thaber was the winner at the other dirt track earlier this season back in Hay River, but Small Nozomi is going to hold the lead. Bridget Pitt now shuffled up to the front. Bridget hasn't had the best of seasons. She has been involved in a few wrecks, including flipping over back at Saskatoon. But Kip Pitt's daughter doing great work today so far in that Sempico machine, as the Discover Alaska cars have got her in a bit of a sandwich right now. Allie Nelson now takes over the lead again, but Bridget Pitt going to do the crossover and get back underneath the 96. As the F1 car is in the top 4. Both Fred and his teammate Small Nozomi are inside the top 10 as well. So it seems to be teams are putting together some pretty good setups and have applied them to both of their drivers. Fred Flintstone now in second position, looking to take over the lead. Another close call. Fred is the king of not giving people room on the outside, as we're nearly 4 wide with the Discover Alaska cars getting back into position. Or are they? The 16's not giving the 96 a whole lot of room. Damir Bejanov running away with the lead for a moment. Lucina Gallo in second, as there's almost too much going on to commentate here. Fred Flintstone up into the wall. Now finally gets a taste of his own medicine. On board, Nick Pericles, as he slices and dices his way past a couple of cars through that madness. Lucina Gallo out of Texas in the Mobil 1 machine. The experienced Texan racer goes to the lead, but would get overtaken by Small Nozomi. But here comes Bryan Hart. But here comes Nick Pericles, assisted with Lucina Gallo on the bottom of the track, as Pericles is going to take over the lead. Small Nozomi looking low, nearly gets into the back of the 35 there. That was a close call. Oh, Small Nozomi up into the wall. Very similar to Patrick Smith. Does not go over, but she did get hit by Tristan Wilhoit. But it looks like Small Nozomi will continue on relatively unscathed. I don't know whether it'll drive quite the same as it once did, but the 16 with major front end damage as he gets himself off the wall. He's going to try and race it back here, but there's got to be something majorly wrong with that machine. He gets into the wall in 3 and 4 once again. Tylor Thaber narrowly escaped that accident. Off the corner, William Brock and Thaber would make contact, but they would get it saved, luckily, and they would just narrowly avoid the pit wall on their way back to the flag. Nick Pericles would get the restart. Lucina Gallo in second, Fred Flintstone in third, but all of those positions are pending and ready to change by the time they hit the back straightaway. Fred Flintstone's going to take the lead, and it looks like he's going to lead the lap. Now they're 4 wide for second as Pericles is impatient. We're still not that far into this race. Really surprised to see how aggressive some of these drivers are being. Gallo's car takes a beating up at the top of the track. But back on the restart, Nicky Martinez would pass Lucas Knight before we got to the line, and that is a penalty in Hart. Lucas Knight was a bit off the pace there, off the back of the damaged 777, but in any circumstance, it's not legal to do that. So down the pit lane comes Nicky Martinez. They would lose a few laps in that process. Fred Flintstone and Bryan Hart now battling for the lead. Both of these drivers have cycled back and forth within the top 10 today and seem pretty strong. Fred Flintstone would end up getting into the wall again, and Bridgette Pitt and Tylor Thaber made some contact but managed to save their cars. Tristan Faulkner is running around mid-pack. He's not had the best season, and this is definitely not going to make things any better. A blown engine for the 6 car as Ike Durbin gets by. Wow, some cars screaming by, some very close calls, contact with Al Lagasse and others there, but we managed to stay clean and green somehow. Now on board Allie Nelson through this chaos as she would manage to snap up a number of positions, but wow, that was a close call with Al Lagasse and the smoking car of Tristan Faulkner. Damir Bejenoff back up into the lead. He's doing a phenomenal job in just his second time back into this series. The 2012 champion has been put back into a championship contending position after he took over from Spencer Fullerton in that number 73 just a couple of rounds ago. Now it's Fred Flintstone back up into the lead with Bryan Hart now leading the inside charge. Damir Bejenoff goes to the midline and tries to get back into a better position. Bejenoff would end up snapping the lead from Bryan Hart with Lucino Gallo now in third, and Tony Tavaleris back in the mix in the 69. Going off of turn 2 and seeing the cars fly by, Damir Bejenoff and Bryan Hart would trade the lead a couple of times, with Bejenoff eventually getting it back. Then it was Lucino Gallo to the front, and Tony Tavaleris, but Bejenoff already working his way back into the lead in that purple Pontiac. Nearly 4 wide through the corner as Dan Bouchard was taking a look to the inside. Gallo up in the wall. The action has not slowed down at all. Within a couple of laps, Dan Bouchard would manage to take over the lead with Bridgette Pitt in second and Fred Flintstone down on the bottom trying to get in the first position now. Dan Bouchard dominated last time out at Speedway 660, winning while leading every single lap of the race after starting on pole. He's put himself in a good position here to get another good finish, but something would go wrong on his car, and the 037 slowing on the front straightaway, trying to get out of the way as many cars go flying by. He manages to stay out of trouble mostly. Oh, a little bit of contact with Jeffrey Finguy's mangled machine, but manages to get it down to the pit lane. But Dan Bouchard with an electrical issue that's going to put him 3 laps down. Lucino Gallo slides up the track. Fred Flintstone pushes Tylor Thaber up the track, and we're now 3 wide for the lead again. Fred Flintstone down on the bottom, Lucino Gallo in the wall, and Damir Bejenoff leading the charge on the inside. At the halfway mark, Fred Flintstone leads. Most of the field is within about 5 to 6 seconds of the leader. They're starting to space out just a little, as this is the longest green flag run of the race so far. A couple of laps after this, Sylvain Lesauvage takes over the lead, with Nick Pericles close behind. Sylvain Lesauvage, the Montreal native, did very well in his home race, and we're still in Quebec. This is the second and final race in Quebec. He's looking to perform well and maybe get a W. William Brock in the 4 car has had a rough season. He's currently last in points, and that matches his efforts in the 2017 HARC Pro Series. But looking to change things here today in that yellow and black DeWalt Camaro as he takes over the race lead for a couple of laps. Gallo gets sideways as Damir Bejgenov would eventually shuffle his way back to the front. Fred Flintstone now in second. Max Anderson's joined the lead group now, with Nick Pericles still hot on his heels. Max Anderson would eventually end up taking over the lead, with Nick Pericles still right there. Lesauvage hanging in as well. Max Anderson's best finish came at Phoenix back in 2017, where he came second to Taylor Price at the time. Now looking back at Lucas Knight leading a pack of 5 cars. We've got less than 50 to go now, and we've been under green flag conditions for more than 50 laps, so the field spreading into a few different packs here. Lucas Knight leading this one, followed by Al Lagasse, Ali Nelson, Cassie Gertis, and Annie Thomas. They're about 2 seconds behind the leading pack and a second in front of a third group of cars. Behind them, it's Kyle Collins, who did perform very well here in 2017, along with JF Finguy and Zachary Fitzwater in this final third pack. But back up at the front, it's Bryan Hart leading, with Tony Tavaleris and Max Anderson racing for position, as Nick Pericles and Lucina Gallo are right behind. But it would be Fred Flintstone taking over the point within a couple of laps, with Tony Tavaleris hot on his heels in that 69 machine. The F1 car of Fred Flintstone has been up at the front several times over the course of this race. Just got into the wall there, but manages to hold on to it. Tony Tavaleris back up into the lead. After a few more laps, it would be Sylvain Lesauvage going back to the front. He's led the most laps so far today, along with Bridgette Pitt now sitting in the second position. Not going to lead this lap, but William Brock still sitting there as well. Damir Bejgenov, as this lead group of cars is looking like they're going to be the ones to compete for the race victory, especially as they're coming up on lap traffic, as long as they stay green. William Brock back in the lead. Damir Bejgenov now fighting to get into second, as Bridgette Pitt washes up the track. Once you get up there, you seem to get into some marbles, and a lot of drivers end up hitting the wall on the high side. So close call there with Sylvain Lesauvage, as Sylvain Lesauvage would actually end up being the leader as we arrive to the first couple of cars of lap traffic. We arrive at the damaged cars of Small Nozomi and Jeffrey Finguy. It's amazing Jeffrey Finguy's outpacing Small Nozomi. Nozomi doesn't look like she has that much damage, but she did take a pretty hard lick earlier, and she's in the wall currently. Sylvain Lesauvage able to get through relatively unscathed. This 2-car group is composed of just Cassie Gertis and the 97 and Nicky Martinez. Both of these cars are 3 laps down, and they're the last cars on track, but they're still able to have a little bit of battle as Martinez gets up into the wall. Back up front, it's Damir Bejgenov with the lead, Lucina Gallo second, and Fred Flintstone in third. Sylvain Lesauvage in fourth, as we're actually single file for a bit, but that's not going to last long, as here comes Gallo up the inside. Fred Flintstone very close to getting to the back of the 47 car, as Gallo's going to end up taking the lead here. Damir Bejgenov has won several races in his career. He certainly knows how to get it done. He's going to be fighting with these drivers who have never won before, Fred Flintstone and Gallo. Lesauvage, though, back to the point. Fred Flintstone into the wall yet again. I'm surprised he has any point left. He's in the wall the whole corner there. Lesauvage appears to be the dominant car of the day so far, although it's been really hard to tell exactly who's dominant, how many lead changes we've had, as we've got to be up over 50 now. Lesauvage and Tony Tavaleris now racing for first position. Max Anderson in the mix as they continue to cycle through. No one able to get a clear advantage. Now it's Max Anderson and Fred Flintstone racing 3 wide with Sylvain Lesauvage. As we get into the closing laps now, Fred Flintstone has the lead in the yellow and orange F1 car. Gallo back through in the 47. And Gallo would end up going all the way back to the race lead. Damir Bejgenov up the inside in the number 73 as we're coming to 5 laps to go. the caution comes out at this point, the race will end under yellow. So the goal for all of these drivers will be to get to the front and stay there. But no one's been able to do that very much so far today. Damir Bejanoff leads with 4 laps to go. Pericles in second, Brigitte Pitt in third. As Pericles closes in on the 73 and gets to his inside in turn 3. Caught Damir by surprise there. Damir leads at the line by just 4 thousandths of a second, but Pericles is through. Damir's going to need to get back in line and give it another shot, but here comes Brigitte Pitt on the inside into turn 3 as Bejanoff has lost control and is flipping wildly behind them. We're racing back to the line, and it's Brigitte Pitt that's going to lead to the caution flag with just a few laps remaining. And if all goes well, Brigitte Pitt is going to be your winner here. But let's take another look at what happened behind them as Damir Bejanoff, trying to hold on to a podium spot, pushes it too hard into the corner, and similar to Patrick Smith earlier this race, would get sideways, get up into the wall, and dig in and go for a wild ride. Small Nozomi would smash into Damir as well as we go on board Small Nozomi as she sees Damir flipping ahead of her, gets pinched up still, racing alongside the number 92 and just clips the 13. Some significant engine damage for Small Nozomi. It's been a rough race for her as she's going to end up going behind the wall before we could finish this one. But back up front, after 70 recorded lead changes at the line and 18 different leaders, it's Brigitte Pitt who finds herself in the right place at the right time to claim victory here at Autodrome Granby. A fantastic run by her, leading laps throughout the day and bringing that Senpico lubricants machine to victory lane for her father's team. What a great job by that rookie to claim the hardware here today. Nick Pericles came across the line second. Another strong performance for Pericles here at Granby. It's got to be one of his favorite tracks. Tylor Thaber would come home third. Great run for his championship efforts with Fred Flintstone fourth, Gallo in fifth. Anderson sixth, Cassie Gertis seventh. Bryan Hart, your championship leader, will maintain his championship lead with that 8th place finish. Then it's Lesauvage, who led the most laps with 25 in 9th, and Lucas Knight comes across the line in 10th place. Now looking at the point standings, it's Bryan Hart with a 12-point advantage over Tylor Thaber, Lucas Knight in 3rd. Then it's Bejanoff in 4th despite his flip, but without that flip he would have been at the head of the field likely, and Nozomi in 5th. Fitzwater Sr. fell to 6th in the standings after a poor showing today, and Max Anderson in 7th is the last car within a 1-race striking distance of Bryan Hart. The bottom 8 drivers shown in red are now mathematically out of contention for the championship as we have just 2 rounds to go. For the penultimate round of the season, field heads to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for a high-speed road course race at the historic venue. We'll see you there.